9 World Cup finals and 7 trophies in 13 editions. 7 T20 World Cup finals and 6 trophies in 9 editions. No matter the format or conditions, one team has defined excellence in the world of women's cricket. This isn't luck, it isn't just talent either, and it's definitely not accidental. So, the real question is, why does Australia keep winning in women's cricket? Let's break it down. Without getting too much into just the history of the sport in the land down under, women's cricket can be traced back to 1894 when Lily Pillett Harris, a Tasmanian, created the first local women's competition in Australia's history books. They were aided by the fact that small towns in rural areas often lacked enough male players to have a full team. During the early part of the 20th century, this problem was solved for by including female players and allowing mixed-gender teams. The first systemic change came in 1922 when a committee in Australia investigated the benefits of physical education for girls and came up with several recommendations regarding what sports were appropriate for girls to play based on the level of fitness required. Nearly a decade later, the Australian Women's Cricket Council was formed in 1931. If a more liberal society wasn't enough, luck and maybe geography also played a role in the growth of the sport. While much of Europe was rebuilding after the Second World War, women's cricket structures in Australia remained largely intact. Domestic competitions continued even during the war years, and it meant that administrative systems, clubs and player pathways didn't collapse. So, Australia wasn't restarting from scratch when the post-war period arrived. The foundations were already there. While other countries were focused on national recovery, Australian women's cricket could simply keep growing. That continuity gave them a quiet but significant head start, one that shaped the sport's trajectory for decades to come. While talking about Australia's dominance, we often focus on players, results and trophies. But the real differentiator lies behind the scenes. First, financial security. Cricket Australia began formal central contracting of women's cricketers in 2008. What did this change? Players didn't need full-time secondary jobs. Recovery, strength training and skill work became a primary commitment. And importantly, careers became long-term and sustainable. Second, access to facilities and infrastructure. Australian women train in elite facilities, often the same high-performance centres as the men. Access includes sports science departments, data analytics teams, biomechanics supports and so on and so forth. This matters a lot more than it sounds. Many other boards historically provided limited or inconsistent access to these resources. That's where Australia institutionalised it. Next, visibility. Investment hasn't just been internal. Australia positioned women's cricket as a flagship product and also marketed it as one. This includes hosting major finals in large stadiums, prime-time broadcasting and standalone marketing campaigns for the bilateral series. The ICC Women's T20 World Cup final in 2020 at the MCG wasn't incidental. It was the result of years of audience building. This visibility has helped them fuel fan loyalty and early stage participation. Even in the ongoing series versus India, you can see fan activation zones for young boys and girls to engage with the sport and its stars. This has now become a virtuous cycle as potential sponsors are incentivized to reinvest thanks to the reach the sport generates. Number 4, the WBBL. While the WBL might be the most cash-rich league in the world, thanks to the Indian subcontinent and its audience, there's no denying that the WBBL is the most fiercely competed women's cricket franchise league in the world. And this is when fans feel that the overseas signings, usually a hallmark of popular leagues, have been suboptimal. The league has been anything but an afterthought. It is televised consistently, marketed aggressively, and has now become a tournament that stands on its own, independent of the men's Big Bash League. And for those wondering why this matters, the competition has ensured that the ecosystem strength is not just reflected in the best 15 representing the country, but in the entirety of the talent pipeline. To give more context, teams participating in Indian domestic competitions are still not equally at par, leading to a lack of quality game time for some of the better players and teams, which could potentially hinder their growth. The change is happening slowly but surely. That's where Australia is a cut above the rest with a domestic pool that mirrors international standards. Lastly, grassroots to elite. Sure, the system takes care of its athletes, and the ones who make it don't have to worry about a lot of things. You might wonder, what about amateurs? And that's where credit where it's due, which is almost everywhere. Cricket Australia has ensured that professionalisation wasn't just top-down. In fact, the Australian Cricketers Association and Cricket Australia joined forces in 2019 and established a $30 million Australian grassroots cricket fund to strengthen community cricket. This initiative directly invests player payment money into local club infrastructure, equipment and training facilities. Australia has systematically encouraged and strengthened school level participation, state academies, age group national camps and talent ID programs. So, by the time a player debuts internationally, she has spent years inside a professional setup that reduces transition shock. Uncapped youngsters such as Lucy Hamilton and Millie Illingworth have already made it to the WBL. Take the 15-year-old Kiva Bray for example. Hailing from a tiny town of Denman in New South Wales Upper Hunter region, she was playing in the under-13 team at the state challenge when she was about 9 years old. She was driven 130 kilometers to Newcastle for Saturday games and 250 kilometers to Sydney for the Molly Drive competition on Sunday, week after week. The system had already recognized the teenager's talent, having awarded her the Basil Sellers Scholarship. She now also has a WBBL contract to boot. This is what behind the scenes looks like. A head start in institutionalizing access to sport usually compounds exponentially. And it's no surprise that they dominate the sport the way they do. The only thing I'm surprised by is the fact that other teams have managed to compete despite lacking so far behind with their resources. Such a lead usually means a prolonged period of competitive separation. That cycle is extremely hard to break once established. They didn't just professionalize, they professionalize early, consistently and structurally. And that's the foundation beneath every trophy. The rest of the world is catching up. The gap is narrowing. Competition is getting fiercer. Until another nation builds an ecosystem as complete and as consistent as Australia's, they will remain the absolute gold standard. They aren't just the best team in women's cricket, but the standard everyone else is chasing. If you enjoyed this breakdown and want more deep dives into the forces shaping women's cricket, not just the scorecards, but the stories behind them, make sure you subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications. Because the game is evolving fast, and I'll try my best to track all of it.